Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Level Up English podcast, the best place to come if you are looking to practice the English language, learn about the British accent and culture, and more with me, your host, Michael Lavers. Today, I guess we could say we're continuing the topic of things I love to talk about. So we did an episode recently about cognitive biases, which I thought was really fascinating. I hope you did too. And today, it's not quite the same, but we're talking about body language today. And this is something that I am also very interested in. And it's one of those things that once you notice it, you will start seeing it everywhere you go. I love those little things where you can learn something just one time and it will kind of maybe change your life is a bit too much, but it will always be with you and you'll be noticing it and appreciating it in different situations throughout your life, which is really cool to think about. So in this episode, I'm going to be talking about some really cool body language facts and how to read someone's body language. If you're not sure what that means, by the way, body language is when you can take meaning from the position or the movements of someone's body. So, of course, it's not only your words that convey meaning, that give meaning, it's also the position of your arms, your legs, your shoulders, and your head, your eyes, everything has some meaning, right? The tricky thing is understanding what that meaning is. So that's what I want to discuss today. And along the way, I know we're going to be learning some new words and phrases as well, hopefully while having fun. And one word we can learn right away is the word gesture. 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 A gesture is a movement of the body. So it could be a noun or it can be a verb. Like he gestured me to come inside, which is like using his arms or body to welcome someone inside the room. So to gesture to someone. So body language and gesturing is kind of similar. It's the same area. As always, for this episode and every episode, there will be a transcript where you can follow along live. So if you do struggle to keep up with my words or you want to practice your reading or listening skills, the live transcripts are really good for that because it highlights the word I'm saying while I'm saying it. And you can also search for words in the episode. So if you want to find specific phrases, you can just really easily type in the word and it will come up to that exact point in the episode. And you'll also find bonus vocabulary lists and quizzes to help you learn the things we talk about in these episodes as well. If you are interested in that, you can become a member at levelupenglish.school and click on the members button at the top of the page. Okay, let's get right into the topic today. I have a lot of things here to talk about when it comes to body language. But I think the first thing I should say is body language is not really a language. And what I mean by that is it's not a thing that you can learn once and then understand all the time. There are certainly patterns to body language, but it's really important to say that it's unique to each individual. So people display different types of body language. If you're crossing your arms, in one person, that can mean you feel uncomfortable. However, in another person, it might mean they feel confident. So different people convey different gestures and different types of body language. So it's not easy always to understand what people think or how they're feeling, but it can give us some clue. And the more we learn about it, the more we can perhaps guess as to how people are feeling. So one example of this that I learned from police interviews. So there's a few YouTube channels that do kind of real crime, like true crime stories where they talk about some horrible crime that's happened and then they show the police interview trying to get the suspect to admit that they are guilty. And it's really fascinating to follow their techniques in the I mean, it's not really an interview, it's an interrogation, which is like trying to get information from someone. They're trying to, find that they're guilty. And seeing the techniques they use is really fascinating. And one thing I learnt from these interrogations is it's not really possible to tell if someone's lying just by their body language. So what you need to do first, here's a good tip if you want to see if someone's lying to you, is establish a baseline level of body language. Because again, each person is unique and different. So you'll notice this if you watch enough police interviews or interrogations. They will start the conversation very casual, like, okay, tell me about your work, tell me about your daily routine. And it's really, really easy questions. And the reason for that is because it allows them to analyze their body language. That's one reason, anyway. So they might notice, okay, so this person, they seem quite awkward. They keep looking up to the left, but I know they're telling the truth. So looking up to the left in this person is not a sign of lying, right? So they know that. Then later on in the interview, they start asking about the crimes. Okay, where did you put the body? What happened to this one? And then if their body language remains the same, it's possible that they are still telling the truth. However, if they start acting differently to how they did before, maybe their eyes are looking the other direction, it could be a signal, a sign that they are lying, that they're not being honest. So that's really, really interesting. So if any of you get arrested, that is how you... No, I'm just kidding. But it is very interesting how people can use body language, use this knowledge to their advantage. And I certainly think it doesn't hurt to learn these things. Personally, I just think it's interesting, and I don't necessarily want to change anything, but I suppose one benefit is that you could be more conscious of your body language to give people the right messages. So if you learn, for example, that, crossing your arms can be a sign of discomfort, you might want to stop doing that to allow the other person to feel more comfortable around you. You don't want to give them the idea that you feel uncomfortable with them. You want to open up and be present in the conversation. But okay, so I think from now on, I'm going to react to a few articles I found online. If you've been listening for a while, you may remember the older reaction episodes that I used to do. And I think these are quite nice because it's really good for topics where I don't know much about it. So I'm not using my own knowledge, I'm using smarter people's knowledge. But here's a really interesting one where there was a study done, I suppose, about touch. And it was found, that's a good passive voice phrase, it was found that waitresses who touch their customers, for example, when they give them the bill and they give them a touch on the shoulder or the arm or something like that, they get larger tips than those who don't, which is very interesting. I imagine this is American, like a USA study, but that's quite interesting to me. I suppose that gives a feeling of stronger or deeper connection with the person. And they also do specify waitresses, which is the female version of the noun. So I wonder if it would be a different reaction for men if men were touching the customers. I think that's something we will notice quite a lot in these facts, is there are differences between men and women, apparently, in lots of body language and how it is perceived. So there's a few examples here. Again, these are not always true, but these are patterns that seem to be true in many cases. So one example is a tilting of the head. So tilt is kind of like leaning. So when your head is tilted, it's a little bit to the side. And I mean, what do you think this could signify? According to this article, it signifies curiosity. It shows that you're curious. And if you tilt your head specifically to the left, which is interesting, it shows you're curious and want to learn more about something, which I think I understand. I think that makes sense to me. However, to me personally, it also suggests sympathy or empathy. If someone tells you they've had a really difficult time recently and they're going through some really tough challenges, I feel like it would be quite normal to tilt your head like, I'm so sorry, and like move it to the side. But why is that? I don't know why. That one doesn't make much sense to me, but it feels right, but I don't quite know the reason why. Here's another example that blinking can indicate anxiety or nervousness. So if you're blinking really quickly, then it can suggest you might be lying or something is happening to make you more uncomfortable, right? You're blinking more. Again, I'm not quite sure why that is, but I think we should also be very careful in not judging this too quickly, because I blink very quickly sometimes, and the reason is because I have something in my eye, right? Maybe some dirt flew into my eye. I'm trying to blink to get it out. And that doesn't mean that I'm lying. So we have to be very careful when reading these kinds of body language gestures, right? Maybe we can look at a few differences between men and women now. I think it's always good to say when you look at men and women that it's a general difference. There are going to be men and women who don't fit into these categories, but generally, for the most part, these are supposedly true. That means, according to this article, they are true. And if you like, I can put my sources on the show notes page for you to have a look at as well. But one interesting thing is women and men perceive, that means view, good listening skills differently. So it seems that to a woman, good eye contact is a strong indicator of good listening skills. Indicator just means a sign, really. So if you're giving eye contact, it shows that you're listening. However, for men, it has been shown that it's less important. Men can listen, and even if someone is not giving you that much eye contact, for men, apparently it doesn't seem to matter as much. And I have a theory, this is just my idea, but I have a theory as to why this might be. So another really interesting fact is the difference that has been shown that the body is facing between men and women in a conversation. So in a conversation, women seem to be more comfortable being approached from the front. So if you think about your shoulders, they're both facing the other person. So if you see two women talking, I think in my experience, it's quite common that they'll be facing straight onto each other. It's very open and they're facing each other directly. However, with men, it seems to be more common that men face kind of at an angle to each other, maybe a 45-degree angle. And I learned this finding a few months ago, and ever since then, I've been seeing it everywhere, even in myself when I'm talking to someone. And I think the reason for this is apparently because when men are facing directly towards one another, it kind of has this feeling of confrontation, as if they're going to fight, for example. They're going to confront one another in a violent way. So this kind of angled way of talking, if you're watching the video, it's like what I'm doing now. I'm looking at you, I'm talking, but my body is facing to the side. It's not facing you. This is much less confrontational, and it feels less aggressive to most men, apparently. So next time you're in a public place, have a look around, and if you see a group of men talking, you might notice this yourself. I've been noticing it a lot, and it's kind of interesting how this does seem to be true in many cases. And I also wonder if the eye contact thing is the same, where giving lots of eye contact can be a sign of aggression, right? In many animals and maybe in men as well. It can seem like an aggressive thing. So maybe women and men perceive eye contact differently. I think a lot of you will already be aware of this as well, but this is just another really interesting thing that I think you can make use of to allow people's opinion of you to be affected or changed. So this is how much space you're taking up in a public environment, a public place. So essentially, the more space your body takes up in the environment, the more confident you will appear. So imagine you're sitting on the bus, you've got your legs wide open, you've got your arm on the seat next to you, and you're really spread out, and you've got your head up, and you're taking up a lot of space. You might say that is a bit obnoxious, right? That's a bit rude, we could say. But what you wouldn't say is that guy looks uncomfortable. That guy looks insecure. Insecure means not confident in himself. right? If we take up a lot of room, it may have some negative feeling, but it certainly does look confident. And conversely, if you take up a small amount of room, you cross your arms, you cross your legs, you kind of slump down in your chair. Slump is to kind of go down in your chair. Then it looks like you lack confidence. Let me go back up again. So this may be obvious for many people, but once you consciously think about this, you can start to hack it. So you can change how people will perceive you by changing your body language. And what's really magical about this, I can say from my own experience, is you will also change how you feel in your own body. I mentioned this on a previous episode with Claire, on a conversation episode before. And yeah, how you position your body affects how you feel as well. So I do this all the time. I'm aware of it now. And when I'm in a public place, especially if I'm feeling a little bit uncomfortable, maybe it's a new environment and I'm not sure, what's going on, I will just try to position myself to be a bit bigger, put my arm on the seat next to me, or maybe put my ankle over my knee, like cross my legs like that. And I'm taking up more space, not in an obnoxious and rude way, but I feel more confident because of my position. And when people approach me, they will get that feeling too. So when you're trying to meet new people, be aware of your body language and don't close off. If you kind of have your shoulders high and your arms crossed, that kind of person does not seem approachable. That's something very good to know. I think that is a really helpful thing about learning body language. I think I'll do one more man-woman difference here because it might be getting too much and it's not always fun to look at the differences between men and women. But this one I had never heard before and it sounds really interesting. So we can learn the word here, peripheral, which is quite hard to pronounce, but peripheral talks about, in vision, it talks about the edge of your vision. So when you're looking at something, you've got the thing in the middle that you can focus your eyes on, and then around the edge over here, it's your peripheral vision, which you can kind of see, like I can see my hand here now next to my head, but it's kind of blurry and it's kind of hard to focus on because it's so far to the side of where I'm looking. So your peripheral vision is how wide you can see, and at some point, where is it? For me, it's like around here. If you're watching on the video, it's kind of like in line with my temple, which is that part of my head. And at that point, I can stop seeing my hand. It goes out of my peripheral vision and kind of behind my head. What I never knew before is the peripheral vision between men and women is apparently different. So for a woman, they have wider peripheral vision, which means they can see much better to the side of their heads compared to men. Now, I don't want to make any assumptions here. I don't want to offend anybody. That is the last thing I want to do. But according to this article, this might be why men are more likely to look at women in a creepy kind of way, where they look up and down at a woman when they're kind of, here's a good phrasal verb, checking her out. So check out. This phrasal verb can mean to kind of look at someone to see if you're attracted to them. Like, oh, that guy's checking me out. Maybe I should get his number, right? So yeah, perhaps it's true that men are just a bit creepier. I don't know, I'm not saying that. But according to this article, it could also be true that men are simply not as good at using their peripheral vision as women. Women are much better at doing that. Again, I'm not going to comment. I'm not going to say this is true either way, but it's just what the article says, and it does have a reference as well. But very interesting if so. I guess speaking from my personal experience, moving away from that gender difference, I can just say here in Thailand, I wonder if it's a cultural thing as well, or more likely it's a habitual thing. Habitual is the adjective for habit. So I feel like in the UK, people have a good peripheral vision. So when you're walking down the street, even if you're looking forward, you're kind of aware if someone is next to you and they're trying to get past you, because I'm looking forward and I can see someone is standing next to me. So then I move to the side so they can overtake me, right? I think it's very normal. In London, it happens all the time. However, I feel like in Thailand, people don't have a good peripheral vision. And to be fair, it could just be they don't care. It might not be the ability. They just maybe don't really care about moving out of the way. I don't know why, but it just seems to me like it's not so good here. So sometimes I'm walking like right next to someone, like really definitely in their eye range, and yet they don't see me. And they're not moving to give me enough room to go past. And then once I'm like almost in front of them, then they will go like, ooh, and like jump back because they didn't know that I was there. And it happens quite a lot here, and I really don't know why. So it does seem to me that maybe using your peripheral vision is habitual to some extent. So perhaps the more you use it, the more accustomed you are to seeing over there. Here's another phrase that you could learn. If you don't use your peripheral vision, we can call it tunnel vision. This is where you can see, or you're really focused on that small area right in front of your eyes, but nowhere else. And we often use that phrase tunnel vision when someone is really focused on something, but ignoring everything else. So maybe you could say, oh, Michael really has tunnel vision on the podcast. All he cares about is recording that podcast, but he doesn't do anything else. He doesn't care about anything else apart from the podcast. So it kind of suggests that it's a bad thing, that I'm too focused on one thing and not on everything else. I have tunnel vision. Another really interesting aspect of body language is something known as mirroring. I feel like that would be really hard to say in an American accent, but I think I can just about say it. Mirroring. So it's mirror and then ing, mirroring. And this is when you copy the body language of another person, usually instinctually, which means it's kind of based on your instinct. It's something you do without realizing. So one thing that is often said in body language is when someone mirrors another person and their body language, it's a sign that they might care about the other person, or maybe they respect them, or they view them in a positive way. So if your friend is sitting with their legs crossed and one hand on the side of their face like this, and then the other person does that too, it might be a sign that those people have a good connection and there's some respect there. And this is something, again, that I notice mostly in myself and other people. I look around me and I realize, wait, me and this person, we have the exact same body language. And then I have to wonder, who did it first? Did I do it first, or did this person do it first? You know, who is copying the other person? So that's very interesting there. And apparently, again, I tried to move away from men and women, but there's another one in this article, which is women are apparently 4 times more likely to mirror with another woman than a man is to mirror with another man. So that's an interesting thing there. Women are more likely to do it. And it also goes on to say here that if a man mirrors a woman's behavior or woman's body language, it could be a sign that he is interested in her romantically. So if you're a woman out there and you're wondering, does that guy like me? If he's copying your body language, then maybe it means he does, but he just doesn't know the signal that he is giving off. This next one, I kind of regret reading this one, but now that I've read it, I'm going to share it with you and bring you in on this disgusting thing. But yeah, this one I don't really like, and it's not a proven fact. It may not be true, but it says some scientists believe that humans shake hands in order to exchange body odors. So apparently you often subconsciously, which means without really thinking, smell your hand after shaking another person's hand. Now, I'm not sure that's true. I don't think I ever do that. I'm always very aware of touching someone's hand, and I don't want to bring it anywhere near my face. I don't think it's true for me, but Who knows? But I wonder what that means though. Is that just like a sign if someone smells nice, it means they're going to be hygienic and a good person? I'm not quite sure what that is suggesting, but it does make me wonder how interesting it is that, at least it's kind of a Western thing anyway. Why do we shake hands? It's a strange thing to do, isn't it? We put our hands together and then we move our hands up and down. When you take a step back from this, it seems like a very weird thing to do. So there must be some reason why that developed into a common greeting, right? But yeah, it does make you kind of think differently about these things. Like, why do we do certain things? And if aliens came to visit Earth, they would probably think about our body language and this kind of stuff in a really, really weird way, that they would have totally different norms. But even it should be said that different cultures around the world have different ways of showing body language too. There are some cultures where they would shake their head to mean yes, whereas in my culture, shaking your head to side means no, of course. Eye contact is another big one. In Western cultures, let's say, eye contact is quite important to show that you care about someone or that you're listening to someone. But apparently, in some African cultures, extended eye contact can be a sign of aggression, so you should avoid looking into the eye for too long. I think I can talk about my personal experience as well with smiling. Smiling's a really big one that I find very difficult to accept, honestly, because there is a difference. I feel like every country smiles differently, right? In the UK, I think we smile quite a lot, like comparatively to other countries. We do like to smile. Maybe not as much as Americans, I'm not quite sure. But, we smile very often to be polite, to show kindness, sometimes out of awkwardness as well, like your awkward smile when you're uncomfortable. And it's not that uncommon in the UK, especially in less urban areas, less city areas. You might smile at people on the street. Maybe you don't know them, you don't want to say hello, but you might smile just to acknowledge that person. Personally, I think it's a really nice thing to do. It makes me feel happy, and hopefully it has the same effect on the other person. So sometimes I'll be walking here and I'll see someone I know or I've seen a few times before. I'll smile at them, they'll smile at me, and I kind of feel quite good about that. However, there are many cultures where it's just not a big thing. I guess in my experience now, I could just tell you, Thailand is also known as the land of the smiles. Everyone smiles here. It's so, so nice. It's one of my favorite things about Thailand is even in a situation where it might be quite scary, like you cross the road and a car almost hits you and you might think, oh no, they're going to be mad at me. But then they smile at you and say, oh, it's okay, I'm sorry, keep on going. It's such a great feeling, whereas in the UK, you would definitely get shouted at. However, there are many cultures where smiling is just not a big thing. For example, there are many Russian people here in Thailand at the moment, and I have a few Russian friends here as well, and a lot of them just don't smile that much. And it's a really weird thing because I'm not really used to it. I haven't got used to that lack of smiling, but in their culture, I think it's quite normal, and it doesn't mean they're not happy, as far as I know. It's just not something they do. I imagine they would say smiling is reserved for people who they really care about, like family, perhaps, and they wouldn't smile at strangers. But that's why I feel like it is quite nice when I have a friend who rarely smiles, and they do smile at me. It feels much, much more special than someone who always smiles. By the way, this topic of body language was another one I did in one of my group classes at Level Up English. And I think it was really fun to talk about. What I loved about this topic so much is we had people from all over the world and they were sharing different aspects of their body language from their own cultures. It was really, really interesting. We spoke about one, for example, one quite obvious one to see, which is two fingers at the back of your fingers. In America, in the USA, it kind of means peace or something like that. It's just like a cool thing to do. But in the UK, it's kind of like a swear, not a swear word, but a swear gesture, let's say. It's a very rude thing to do. So there's a few differences even between the US and the UK. And another thing that we spoke about in the class was a few different images and what they mean, perhaps. So I'd be interested to hear what you think. And I think we'll just do this one last thing today, and you can hopefully learn some new words and think about what these mean as well. So the first one is clenched fists. Clenched fists. You might know that a fist is a hand in this position, as if you're going to hit someone. Clench, to clench is like to squeeze, but it's really, really commonly used for hands. Clenching your fist. You know, that's a really common expression. It's much more common than squeeze your fist. Clench your fist. It's a really nice advanced expression you can use. So if someone's clenching their fist, what do you think that conveys? To convey means to give meaning. So what meaning does that give if someone's clenching their fists? I guess it could be a few different things. It could be extreme discomfort. If you're really uncomfortable, you might clench your fists like you're trying to get through this moment. Probably it could also mean anger as well. Something really makes you angry. You squeeze and clench your fists as if you want to hit someone, even if you're not really planning to. So that's a clenched fist, right? To clench your fist. Another very common body language feature is frowning. Frowning is something that you do with your face muscles, something you have a lot of in your face muscles, and it's where you push your eyebrows down, and you often get these lines in between your eyebrows as well. And it's kind of like an angry, grumpy look, right? So I've kind of given it away there, but to frown at someone. This is something I try not to do. I think frowning can, of course, be a very negative facial expression, and it conveys annoyance, grumpiness, unhappiness, or something like that. And it is so natural. I've noticed myself just frowning when I'm watching a video where something in the video I don't like. And the more you notice this, the more you can kind of control yourself and reset your face back to neutral. So, you know, there might be something really disgusting that happens in the video I'm watching, and I'll be frowning out of instinct, just naturally, like, ugh. But then my face kind of forgets to go back to normal. So I have to kind of consciously relax my face and kind of be aware of my emotion and body language. So it's a little bit like the cognitive biases we looked at in the previous episode, where the more you are aware of these things, the more you can hopefully control them and use them to your advantage in a nice way, you know? Another common one, which I think we all know what this means, but it's a good word, which is shrugging your shoulders. Or we can simply say shrugging. We don't have to say shoulders, because to shrug, it is really always with your shoulders. It's a very specific word, but much like clench, quite common as well. So shrug is when you put your shoulders up, and then usually you put them down again. And it can be your hands coming up as well, or just your shoulders. It's really the same. So if you shrug your shoulders, what does that mean? I think this is common in every culture. Let me know if it's not in your culture. But it is also an emoji, so that's got to mean something, I would say. But shrugging just means I don't know. I don't know. I really don't know. No idea. It's a very casual way to suggest that you don't know. I wonder why. I don't know why. Like, why does shoulders going up mean you don't know? I don't know. I have no idea why, but that's another interesting one. One more I think we could do now. This is quite funny because I think this is something that a lot of older people will do in China. When I go to China, I see the older people doing this all the time. And this is clasping your hands behind your back. To clasp, it just kind of means to hold strongly. To clasp something. Clasp. So clasping your hands like that together behind your back. So what do you think that suggests? It's kind of how they do in the army, right? When you clasp your hands behind your back. If you do that, what is that suggesting about that person? What feeling or mood does that convey, do you think? To me, I would just say it conveys a feeling of confidence because it kind of creates distance between your shoulders and your head. And that's another thing I've heard is that the more distance between your shoulders and head, or shoulders and chin, the more confident you appear to be. And putting your hands like that definitely lowers your shoulders, which is good. And it also sticks your chest out, which is another sign of confidence, right? So all these things like raising your head, chest coming out, it shows that you're confident and you're not slouched down. Slouched is when you're kind of like low head, curved back. That's slouching. But yeah, I think it's a show of confidence, right? I think this one makes sense to me because a lot of them, I don't quite know where they come from or why they mean that. But this one makes sense. If you think about from like a historical perspective in humans, that all of our important organs are in our chest, like our heart, our lungs. This is the kind of area we want to protect, right? So when we're uncomfortable, we cross our arms over our chest. And when we're feeling comfortable and confident, we put our arms behind our back. And it's showing our most vulnerable area. Vulnerable means it's the weakest area. It could be the most easily damaged. So we're showing that area to signal that we are confident that nothing will hurt us. That one makes sense to me. Okay, I think I'll leave it there. Again, I've spoken for way longer than I expected, but let me know what you think of this one. I ramble much more when I enjoy the topic, as you can tell, but I'd love to know if you learned anything new today. I think I learned a couple things, but also I'd like to know if you have any more examples of body language, maybe in your own culture that you'd like to share. That would be really interesting. So please leave a comment and let me know. I have a really cool quote about body language that I'd love to get to, but first of all, I'm just going to read a couple comments from Spotify this week, just to keep it short. But we had a couple comments on the episode that we did with Lisa, which was episode 273. One of them was from Kamilka, who says, "Again, a super nice episode, especially the part about shy people. Michael, thank you for the variety of points of view. I always look forward to your episode." Thank you very much. And one more here from Ravuth, who says, "Really enjoying your podcast. I usually listen to it every day. Love your British accent from Cambodia, my neighbor." Thank you very much for that one. That was really nice. One more here, which is a little bit older, from 1 month ago now, from Wan Qing, who says, "Hello, Michael. I find your podcast very helpful and understandable. I would like to ask if you're giving online private classes." Well, thank you for your comment. Sadly, I'm not at the moment. I'm open to it in the future, but at the moment, I'm just too busy with both the podcast and the group classes and all the other stuff at Level Up English. It takes so much of my time. But if that changes in the future, I will be happy to open private classes. But at the moment, the only way to learn with me is through the group classes on Level Up English. So hopefully I can chat with you there. Anyway, let's just get to the quote now to finish off. And this is by Deborah Bull, who says, "Body language is a very powerful tool. We had body language before we had speech. 80% of what you understand in a conversation is read through the body, not the words." If you remember the previous episode, this is really similar, this quote. Basically, the language is so much more than just the words. It's not only how you say something, it's also the way that your body is saying something. What is your body saying? So keep all these things in mind when you want to learn a language, because they all come together, they all matter. Very complicated, but very interesting. Thank you for watching or listening to this episode. Really hope you enjoyed it. I'm going to put my hands together now, and this is a gesture of gratitude, especially in Thailand. Thank you very much. and I'll leave you here. So see you next time. Thanks once again. You have been listening to the Level Up English podcast. If you would like to leave a question to be answered on a future episode, then please go to levelupenglish.school/podcast. That's levelupenglish.school/podcast. And I'll answer your question on a future episode. Thanks for listening.